You got to kill. You want to get noticed, kill a pink skin. The bigger the target, the higher you rise.
Middle-earth Shadow of War is a game that's not afraid to take risks. One of the first people you meet is a mysterious, scantily clad, dark-haired woman who you soon learn is a version of the giant spider creature Shelob. It's a choice that fans of the Lord of the Rings lore will have trouble embracing, but it represents the attitude of the entire Shadow of War experience. It's off-putting in the beginning, the ending is disappointing, but seeing how they can explain it all is an exciting ride. The game's best moments come almost entirely from interacting with orcs. Like the first game, Shadow of War is populated by powerful orcs that have specific strengths, weaknesses, and personality traits. You'll wish the quirkier denizens of Mordor could be constant companions instead of the momentary flashes that you either kill or get killed by. They strike the perfect balance of humor and levity against the human cast's dull seriousness. But most of your time in Mordor is spent killing orcs, and building off the first game, Shadow of War has a free-flowing combat system that lets you dominate creatures one-on-one but still stay in control when surrounded by a dozen or more adversaries. That momentum slows when too many things are happening on screen at once, though. When an enemy captain is ready to be coerced over to your side, he flashes green. Enemy hits can be countered following a flashing icon on screen, and you have a slew of different abilities to take out legions of enemies. But the on-screen chaos makes targeting anything specific nearly impossible.
Your journey has ended, Elflord. It is done.
Sauron's throwing his entire army at us!
And he will lose it all!
That's a shame because the game's siege quests carry the most weight. The epic battles through the orc strongholds require quick threat assessments and pitched battles against waves of enemies with an army at your back. When you defend a fortress, you feel incredible relief that you overpowered a superior enemy force, and when you're attacking, the final entrance into the main hall of a fortress's leader feels as reverent and grand as walking into a towering cathedral in real life.
I rejected you once already, and now you and your friends want to move in? Well, let's see whether you're worthy.
Though it feels like you don't get to spend quite enough time with anyone individually, except for Gollum, whose brief appearance is still too long, the narrative gets muddled by the lack of a clear, overarching goal outside of fight against Sauron's forces in Mordor. Shadow of War's map, once you get used to the ridiculous number of icons, shows you where everything you need to find is, but after you've spent a couple hours running around collecting artifacts, it makes the character's entreaty about the approaching threat of the Nazgul in another quest feel a little hollow. The narrative doesn't pull you along a meaningful path, but the things you do on that journey are breathlessly fun. You ride a drake, team up with some ridiculous orcs, meet sexy Shelob, kill countless more orcs, fight the ring wraiths. It's like a greatest hits compilation of the most badass moments from the Lord of the Rings. After a slow-building introductory act, the game just gains momentum as it crashes toward a final standoff against the forces of evil. And this battle addresses criticisms of the previous game. It's an epic multi-stage fight that does still have QTEs, but no more than the ones you find while playing through the game normally.
Oh, the things I would have done to you.
But that battle isn't the end of the game. Bafflingly, Shadow of War continues on, its momentum drained by what feels like an epic climax that descends into a boring slog. In the game's final act, you cycle through the fortresses you explored previously for a total of 20 siege battles that took me about 15 to 20 hours to get through. The story stops pulling you along, and there are no narrative characters to keep you company or explain why it's important to tackle the defense missions in the order you do. It's an entire section that feels like it should have been cut, along with a few other new systems that Shadow of War, to varying degrees of success, tries to incorporate.
You must be the fool who killed my bodyguards. You only delayed the inevitable. The blood of man-swine will flow into my belly today, and I'll drink yours first.
Like almost every item and orc in the game has some type of associated rarity, and with the higher rarity comes more abilities. For orcs, that means they have additional, more powerful attributes that aren't available to common orcs. For weapons, that includes relatively minor perks like a slight chance of lighting an enemy on fire. But the effects aren't so amazing that you'd keep a significantly underpowered weapon or orc just for its benefits. You earn new weapons and new orcs at such a pace that you're constantly swapping out old gear for new, and all of those abilities are wrapped in complicated text-heavy menus. And speaking of convoluted menu systems, there's Shadow of War's skill system. Each main skill has a separate unlockable set of 2 to 3 sub-skills. The ability grid is so dense and spread out that it's a chore just to read through and decide what to put your points into. And reallocating in the middle of battle, say if you want an area of effect attack to shoot out flames instead of poison, involves far too many nested menus to ever be practical. But despite the bloated feel of these systems, you earn all of these skill points, weapons, and orcs at such a frantic pace that weirdly, the game doesn't feel dragged down in the same way as it does by that final act. Shadow of War is, at its core, a great experience that's marred by a completely unnecessary, skippable conclusion. But that's illustrative of the game as a whole. It tries to be larger than its predecessor, but that leads to its biggest problems. There are more abilities, more weapons, more orcs, but it left me wanting less, a more refined skill system, fewer weapons, and a smaller number of orcs who I really get to know, both as my character's companions and as his nemesis. As a sequel to a Game of the Year winner, Shadow of War feels bigger, but not necessarily better in every respect. It introduces epic Lord of the Rings-inspired moments and adventures that provide interesting insight into the world of Middle-earth, but the sheer weight of the game eventually drags it down, leaving you facing an experience that left me eager to leave Mordor, despite its brilliant moments.
Wasn't that a good time? Grog was drunk, laughs were had, blood was shed, and Grog was drunk. Ah, there's no fight like a pit fight.